Hello everyone and welcome back to our virtual Mishnah Berurah shir. We are holding in Mishnah Berurah Chelik Vav. We are continuing to learn Hilchos Tainis. We'll be learning today Miratz Hashem Daf Mem Gimel Amid Aleph. We pick up on Mem Beis, Amid Beis, near the bottom in the Shulchan Aruch, in Siman Tov Kuf Samach Zayin, Sif Aleph. So, for the sake of continuity, I'm going to read from the beginning of Sif Aleph. We broke off just a little bit into Sif Aleph, but we'll read from the beginning. The Mechaber said, Hashari b'tainis, somebody who's in the middle of a tainis, yachal litoim, he's allowed to taste something, kidei revius, up to the volume of a revius. Now today we're going to discuss in greater detail, what does that mean to taste up to the volume of a revius? Ubelvad sheyifleit. However, you're only allowed to put something in your mouth to taste it, you then have to expectorate it, you have to spit it out. Now, the Mishnah Berurah explained to us that the reason you're allowed to taste something on a tainis is because on a tainis, in the words of the Mishnah Berurah here, he said, because when you are makabel a tainis, when you accepted a fast day upon yourself, you did not accept upon yourself that you will not derive any benefit, any pleasure from food. What you accepted upon yourself is that you will not eat. And I quoted to you yesterday the Aruch HaShulchan. The Aruch HaShulchan says eating means you swallow something and it goes into your digestive system. That's what's called eating. Putting something into your mouth and deriving the pleasure of taste and then spitting it out does not constitute eating. And therefore, when you accepted the tainis, you didn't accept an isser of te'ima. You only accepted an isser of achila. And therefore, the Mishnah Berurah said, Te'ima is mutter. And the Mishnah Berurah threw out to us the possibility that it could be that even Te'ima that you're doing specifically for the pleasure of tasting food, it could be that that's also mutter. The Aruch HaShulchan says it would be a pella to say that that's mutter. But again, we spoke yesterday, it's a little bit difficult to understand why should it not be mutter. If the basis for the heter of Te'ima is that you did not accept upon yourself an isser of te'ima, so then why can't you do te'ima even if you're doing it specifically for the purpose of the hana of te'ima? If the hana of te'ima is not asr, what's the problem? So I read to you yesterday from the Bach that it could be that there's a certain point at which the hana of te'ima does become achila. It does start to constitute achila. Okay. So this is what we saw so far yesterday. Now, let's take a look. Let's go further here in the Mechaber. Says the Mechaber, U'b'yom HaKippurim u'b'tisha b'av aser. However, while tasting food up to revius is mutter on most tanesim, on Yom Kippur and on Tisha B'av, even this is aser. And now the Ramah says, Haga, v'yesh machmirim b'chol tainis tzibur. There are those that are machmer on every tainis tzibur. So Shiva Asar B'Tammuz, Asar B'Tevis, some Gedalia, I guess Tainis Esther, they would be machmer that you should not do te'ima on any tainis tzibur. I guess not Tainis Esther. I don't think Tainis Esther is included because, Tainis Esther is not included. It's talking about the four Tainesim that are mentioned in the Pasuk. So that would be Asar B'Tevis, Shiva Asar B'Tammuz, Tisha B'av, and some Gedalia. Te'ima would be asar on all of those, not only on Tisha B'av and Yom Kippur. And the Ramah says, V'hachi noihagin, and that indeed is our minig. Now let's take a look here in the Mishnah Berurah. Mishnah Berurah is cut and dalet. U'b'yom HaKippurim u'b'tisha b'av asar. Even though the Mechaber says Te'ima is mutter on the tainis tzibur, but the Mechaber says that on Tisha B'av and Yom Kippur, it's asar. Why? Why the difference between Tisha B'av, Yom Kippur, and the other Tainesim? Explains the Mishnah Berurah, because again, what was the basis for the heter of Te'ima? The basis for the heter was, you are Makabel Tainis, you accepted a Tainis upon yourself, and when you did so, you only accepted upon yourself an Isser Achila. You did not accept upon yourself an Isser Hana. And Te'ima is only Hana, it's not Achila. That was the basis of the heter. So now, how do we differentiate between those Tanesim and Tisha B'av and Yom Kippur? Says the Mishnah Berurah, because by Tisha B'av and Yom Kippur, the ef shaloi mar shaloi kibel alei. Says the Mishnah Berurah, we cannot use the rationale. We can't say that there's something here that you did not accept upon yourself. The lav b'kabbalasai talia, because by Tisha B'Av and Yom Kippur, it's not up to you to be makabel the tainus. Now, by Yom Kippur, that's very easy to understand. Yom Kippur is an Issa Daraisa. I don't care if you accepted it upon yourself, if you did not accept it upon yourself. You are not restricted by what you accepted upon yourself. You're restricted by what the Torah HaKadoshah placed upon you. So, by Yom Kippur, we can't use this logic that it's up to what you accepted upon yourself. And the Mishnah Berurah says that that also applies to Tisha B'Av. By Tisha B'Av also, we don't say that it's up to your Kabbalah. What's restricted to you is not dependent upon your Kabbalah. Tisha B'Av is such a strict fast, it's such a davar chamor when we mourn over the Beis Hamikdash and the destruction of Yerushalayim, that it's not up to your Kabbalah. You're not restricted based on what you were makabel and what you were not makabel. Va'afilu b'pachas merevius aser, and therefore te'ima is aser even if it's less than a revius. You can't stick your finger into something to taste it and stick your finger into your mouth. Te'ima is aser on Tisha B'Av and Yom Kippur. Now, what's difficult about this Mishnah Berurah is, I don't understand. If you're telling me that on a tainus, what did we say until now? We said by a regular tainus tzibur, te'ima is mutter. Why? Because when you're makabel tainus, you're makabel in Isser Achila, you're not makabel in Isser Hana. Tisha B'Av and Yom Kippur are different because it's not up to your Kabbalah. Okay, is the Isser Tainus on Tisha B'Av and on Yom Kippur different than the Isser Tainus on the other Tanesim? I understand you're telling me that it's not up to your Kabbalah, but so what? Fine, so it's not up to your Kabbalah. These Tanesim, Tisha B'Av and Yom Kippur, are considered Mekubal V'Aimid. But still, where do we get an Isser Hana? Why is there anything more than an Isser Achila like any other Tainus? So let's take a look at the Berurah halacha here. Dibra Maschel Ubiyom Kippurim v'Tisha B'Av. Says the Chavetz Chaim Hatam, the reason why Te'ima is also on Yom Kippur at Tisha B'Av, Kasavdu b'Mishnah Berurah, we wrote in the Mishnah Berurah, Mishum de'inu loy b'kabbalasai talui, because by Yom Kippur at Tisha B'Av, it's not up to your Kabbalah. And therefore, it's not appropriate to say that Te'ima should be mutter on Tisha B'Av and Yom Kippur because you only accepted upon yourself an Isser of Achila and Shtia, eating and drinking. You did not accept upon yourself an Isser of Hana. That doesn't work by Tisha B'Av and Yom Kippur because by Tisha B'Av and Yom Kippur, it's not up to your Kabbalah. In the brackets here, the Chavetz Chaim says, Shehu tam heter te'ima kamavur b'shas. That was the basis for the heter of te'ima on a regular tainus tzibur, which we see in Brachas Yudal Amud Aleph. Now, says the Chavetz Chaim, V'shonoi laha mechaber Yom Kippurim v'Tisha B'Av. According to the mechaber, Yom Kippur and Tisha B'Av are different misha'arei tanyos tzibur haksuvim, from the other three tanesim that are also written in the pasuk. Chavetz Chaim is pointing out, according to the Mechaber, why should there be any difference between Tisha B'Av and Asar B'Tevis, Shavasa B'Tamas, and Tzom Gedalia? All four of those Tanesim are written in the pasuk. So why is Tisha B'Av different than the other three? After the Nami ain't Srichin Kabbalah. Shavasa B'Tamas and Asar B'Tevis and Tzom Gedalia, also you don't need to be Makabel them. Those Tanesim are also Mekubal V'Aimid, because they're written in the pasuk, there is Surei D'Rabbanan, and you're mechuyev to fast. So what basis is there to make a difference between those Tanesim and Tisha B'Av? If you're telling me on Tisha B'Av there's an Isser Te'ima because it's Mekubal V'Aimid, so these other three Tanesim are also Mekubal V'Aimid. Why isn't there an Isser Te'ima then too? Explains the Chavetz Chaim, Mishum de'inu ein chiyuvin gadol kol kach. Because somehow those three Tanesim have a lesser level of chiyuv, uberotzoin talui, and therefore to a certain extent the Isser is dependent on your rotzoin. Kol zeh mavur midivrei harav Beis Yosef b'shem harivash. All of this comes out from what the Beis Yosef writes in the Torah in the name of the Rivash. Now, and this is the main reason I wanted to read this Berurah halacha, now the Chavetz Chaim is going to give me an explanation. You see, there's still a piece here that we're missing. Again, if the basis of the heter of Te'ima on a Tainus Tzibur is that the Isser Tainus only incorporates an Isser of Achila and Shtia, and it does not incorporate an Isser of Te'ima. And therefore, when you made a Kabbalah Satainus, you were only Makabal and Isser Achila Shtia. You weren't Makabal and Isser Te'ima. If that's the basis for the heter of Te'ima, then I still don't understand where we get an Isser of Te'ima on Tisha B'Av and Yom Kippur. Very nice. It's not up to your Kabbalah. These Tanaisim need your Kabbalah. Tisha B'Av and Yom Kippur don't need your Kabbalah. But how does that change the Isser? Still, the Isser should only be an Isser Tainus, not an Isser Te'ima. It should only be an Isser Achilu Shtia. Now the Chavetz Chaim is going to explain to us the difference. Says the Chavetz Chaim here, Ube Eshkoil, in the Eshkoil, Re'isi I saw, Shehetik is Divrei Hari Abartzaloni. He brings down the words of the Ri Bartzaloni, Shemimenu Noiveya Hadin, and it's really from the Ri Bartzaloni where this halacha flows. That's really the source of an Isser Te'ima on Tisha B'Av and Yom Kippur. Tahatam, and he explains the reason. Tekaimalan Asar lahaishit yadai lamayim ba'elu. We learned halacha on Tisha B'Av and on Yom Kippur. On Tisha B'Av and Yom Kippur, besides the Isser Tainus, we also have the Chamisha Inuyim. One of the Chamisha Inuyim is Rechitza. You're not allowed to bathe. And if you remember, when we learned Hilchos Tisha B'Av, we learned not only are you not allowed to take a shower, not only are you not allowed to go swimming, on Tisha B'Av, you're not allowed to stick your finger in water. As a matter of fact, we had a case where we were talking about somebody who soaked a washcloth in water, and he wants to use that washcloth to cool himself off. And we had over there, the case was that the person put the washcloth into the water on Erev Tisha B'Av, and he removed it from the water on Erev Tisha B'Av. And we explained the reason the case is given where he put the washcloth into the water and removed it from the water on Erev Tisha B'Av is because on Tisha B'Av, he wouldn't be allowed to remove the washcloth from the water. Because in order to remove the washcloth from the water, he has to stick his hand into the water and take the washcloth out. You're not allowed to stick your hand in water on Tisha B'Av. That's Rechitza. So you see how Chomer the Isser Rechitza is? The Isser Rechitza on Tisha B'Av and on Yom Kippur is that you're not allowed to stick your finger into water. Therefore, says the Ria Bartzaloni, V'chol hana asura. You see that on Tisha B'Av and Yom Kippur, the Isurim of the Chamisha Inuyim go to the extent that you're not allowed to derive any hara at all. Ad kan l'shoinoi. The Kavanasai, the Chavetz Chaim says, what's the Ria Bartzaloni telling me here? Kemai le'inyin rechitza. Just like by the Isser Rechitza on Tisha B'Av and Yom Kippur. Lav Rechitza mamish asru. It's not only clear washing, clear bathing that's prohibited. Ela afilu hayshatas yad lamayim. Even just sticking your hand in water is forbidden. So you see that when there's an Isser Rechitza on Tisha B'Av and Yom Kippur, it's not only real washing that's Isser. You're not allowed to derive any hana from washing at all. You're not even allowed to stick your finger in water. Hu hadin le'inyan achila. So the same thing applies to the Isser Achila on Tisha B'Av and Yom Kippur. Lav Achila mamish dafka. It's not only real Achila and Shtia, that's also on Tisha B'Av and Yom Kippur. Elahu adin kol hana shel Achila. Any hana of Achila, including Te'ima, including tasting, is also on Tisha B'Av and Yom Kippur. And that's why Te'ima, according to the Mechaber, is only Aser on Tisha B'Av and Yom Kippur. So now, let's take a look at this from 30,000 feet. With this Ria Bartzaloni, with this Bir Halacha, now we have an understanding why Te'ima is Aser on Tisha B'Av and Yom Kippur, where it's permissible on the other Tanaisim. By the other Tanaisim, Te'ima is mutter because it's a regular tainus which only incorporates an Isser of Achila and Shtia. And when you are Makabal tainus, that's all you are Makabal on yourself. You are only Makabal on yourself an Isser of Achila and Shtia. By Tisha B'Av and Yom Kippur, there's a different halacha. And by Tisha B'Av and Yom Kippur, it's not up to your Kabbalah. Somebody will turn around and somebody will say, well, I mean, to me, there's no difference between Tisha B'Av and Shavasa B'Tammuz. If you're telling me I was Makabal only in Isser of Achila and Shtia and Shavasa B'Tammuz, I also was only Makabal in Isser of Achila and Shtia on Tisha B'Av. No, on Tisha B'Av and Yom Kippur, it's not up to your personal Kabbalah. It's not up to you to be Makabal this way or that way. The Tanaisim of Tisha B'Av and Yom Kippur are more chamer. They're considered Makubal V'Aimid, and they have a more stringent halacha when it comes to the Isser Tainus. By a regular Tainus Tzibur, the Isser Tainus is only an Isser of Achila and Shtia. By Tisha B'Av and Yom Kippur, the Isser Tainus is not only Achila and Shtia, it's any Hana of Achila and Shtia, including the Hana of Te'ima. So that's why, according to the Mechaber, on a regular Tainus Tzibur, you're allowed to do Te'ima up to a Revi'is. On Tisha B'Av and Yom Kippur, you are not. Closes off the Bir Halachi here, and he says, Achein Harama, who disagrees with the Mechaber, the Ramah says that even on the other three Tanaisim, even on Asar B'Tevis, Shavasa B'Tavis, and Sem Gedalia, there's also an Isser of Te'ima. He'etik Das HaTosfos, he's going according to the opinion of Tosfos, the Chol Tainus She'ein Tzarech Kabbalah Aser, Tainus, the opinion of Tosfos is that any Tainus that's Mekubal V'Aimid, so that includes all of the Tanaisim that I mentioned in Psukim, any Tainus that's Mekubal V'Aimid has this higher standard where even Te'ima is Aser. Okay. So again, the Ramah said, Hagav yesh machmirin b'chal tainis tzibur v'hachinay again. Says the Mishnah Berurah is cut in hay b'chal tainis tzibur, hainu arba tainesim aksuvim, all four of the tainesim that appear in the pasuk, Shivasa b'tamuz, Asara b'tevis, Tisha B'Av Tzam Gedalia, the behem nami ain't tzarch Kabbalah, is cut in vav v'hachinay again, and the Ramah says that is our minig to aser te'ima on all of these tainesim. Says the Chavetz Chaim, ubimkaim sudas mitzvah. If somebody's making a Sudas mitzvah on Motzei Tainus, Shemevashlin Bayoim Lutzarach Halayla, let's say they're making a Sudas bris the night after Shivasa B'Tammuz. So then, and they're preparing for the bris on Shivasa B'Tammuz, Yesh Lismai Chadei Rishayna, then you could rely on the opinion of the Mechaber, Lahater B'Shari Tainesim, Litay Matavshel Ma'at Ma'at, that you could taste the whatever you're cooking a little bit at a time, Im Yesh by Melach V'Tavlin, to see if it has salt and spices, V'Liflite, and then to spit it out. Okay, now we go to the top of Mem Gimel Amud Aleph, Sif Bey, says the Mechaber. Yesh Oimrim, there are those that say, this is brought down from the Gaz Maimoni in the Rekeach, Yesh Oimrim, there are those that say, Shalo Yitiru Revi'is B'Pam Achas, that when we say you're allowed to taste up to the volume of a revi'is, it doesn't mean you could take an entire revi'is and put an entire revi'is into your mouth at once. Ela ma'at ma'at. It means you could taste a little bit at a time, and over the course of the whole day, you could taste up to a revi'is. That's one opinion. V'yesh Oimrim, and then there are others that say, Berurah brings this down from the Rashba, that you could taste up to a revi'is at one time. You could put a whole revi'is in your mouth at once. If you know for certain that you'll be able to prevent yourself, that you won't swallow anything. So the second opinion, the second Yeshayim, the Rashba, is saying that, yeah, you could taste up to a revi'is, but realize, a revi'is is already a mouthful. A reiv revi'is is a mali lugma, is considered a cheekful. So when you put a whole revi'is into your mouth, you're really filling up your mouth. And when you really fill up your mouth, there becomes a greater risk that you might inadvertently swallow something. So the Rashba says, yes, you could taste up to an entire revi'is at one time, as long as you're certain that you won't inadvertently swallow something. Let's take a look here at the Mishnah Berurah, Eis Katan Zayin. Ma'at ma'at. According to the first opinion, you could taste a little bit at a time up to the maximum of a revi'is. U'te'ima zu b'cheich. This te'ima that you're doing, this tasting, is only on the palate. So you're not letting anything go to your throat. It's only in the front of your mouth, so to speak. U'lerakakai miyad, and you have to spit it out right away. Shalai tavar min acheich ulahala. so that the food should not go any further back from the palate and further back. You take it on the palate and you spit it right out. And according to this opinion, everything that you taste on the tainus for the entire day of the tainus adds up to that revius. So if you keep on tasting, somehow you have to keep in mind, did I taste a revius already today? Once you hit a revius, you're not allowed to taste anything anymore. Once you exceed a revius, that's aser. Da'oz chashiva hahana. Very interesting. According to this first opinion, it seems that yes, you're allowed to do te'ima. You're allowed to taste because there's no isser of te'ima. There's only an isser of achila and shtia. So you're allowed to taste a little bit. And then you're allowed to taste another little bit. And then you're allowed to taste another little bit. But once you get to the point where you have tasted more than a revius, now it's already asr. Somehow, now that all of that hana, taking so much hana of taste on a tainus, now it constitutes achila, and now it's asr. It's a very fascinating concept. Same concept like we saw yesterday. At a certain point, hana starts to constitute achila. Okay, I'm sure it would be very interesting to go through the Rishonim here and see the exact phraseology of all the different Rishonim and try to figure out what the underlying lomdus over here is. How does that te'ima eventually become achila? So that was the first opinion. Then the Mechaber said, "V'yeshayim sha'afilu b'pama achas." I cut leches in the Mishnah Berurah. Medekasav HaMechaber din zeh b'shem yesh oimrim v'yesh oimrim. The way the Mechaber writes this halacha, he brings down over here in Sif Bey's two opinions. Yesh oimrim this way, v'yesh oimrim that way. V'lo yechriya b'davar, and he's not machriya. He doesn't say which opinion you should follow. Mashma, the implication is the daita lahakel, that the Mechaber was willing to be makel. Tehu bilsa d'Rabbanan, because we're dealing over here with an issa d'Rabbanan. So when you see that the Mechaber says, Yesh oimrim, there is a first opinion that says that you should be machmir, and you can only taste a little bit at a time. You can't taste a whole revius at once. You can taste a little bit at a time, but it adds and all the tastings combine, and once you hit a revius, that's aser. That's the first opinion. That's the more chamerdik opinion. And then we have v'yesh oimrim, and there's another more makel opinion that no, you could taste up to a revius at one shot, and you could do that a bunch of times during the day. So you could taste the whole revius and spit it out, then taste another whole revius and spit it out. The Mechaber writes yesh oimrim this way, yesh oimrim that way, and he's not machriya. It looks like we could be makel. However, the Chayodam only quotes the first opinion, the more machmedik opinion. V'afshir, it could be shatamai that his rationale is mishum dehamagen Avram hevi b'shem kama rishonim kadeya harishona. We find that the Magen Avram quotes many achronim who agree with the first chomerdik opinion, and maybe that's why the Chayodam only follows the first opinion. Ice cut and test ad kidei revius. The second opinion said that you could taste even at one time up until a revius. According to this opinion, you could taste many times throughout the day. Kol pam kidei revius. Each time you could put up to a revius in your mouth and then spit it out. The second opinion is much more easy to understand. The second opinion holds there is no isser of te'ima. There's no isser of te'ima on a tainus. There's no isser hana. And therefore, you want to taste up to a revius up to 100 times during the day? Gesundheit. Every 2 minutes, you could put a revius in your mouth and spit it out because all you're doing is te'ima. You're only getting hana. And there's no isser hana. What's the problem of tasting more than a revius? Explains the Chavetz Chaim. Aval yoiser me revius, but to put more than a revius in your mouth at once, afilu hu rak toim, even though you're only tasting, pam achas aser. Even if you do this only once, it's forbidden. Why? Because since you're filling up your mouth, yivla ma'at, we're afraid that you're going to inadvertently swallow some. So again, this second opinion over here is much easier to understand. The whole sugya becomes much easier to understand according to the second opinion. According to the second opinion, according to this Rashba, the only isser on a tainus is achila and shtia. And achila and shtia means you swallow something. You take something into your digestive tract. Tasting something in your mouth is not an isser on a tainus. That's only hana. And there is no isser hana. So te'ima is mutter. Why is te'ima only mutter up to a revius? Because the Rashba says, if you fill up your mouth with the revius, we're afraid you're going to inadvertently swallow. And then you'll be over the isser of achila and shtia. That's the second opinion. The first opinion is much murkier. The first opinion is saying te'ima is mutter. Why is te'ima mutter? Because it's only hana, and hana is mutter. You could taste up until a revius. What does up until a revius mean? Up until a revius means you taste a tiny bit. You're not allowed to taste a whole revius. No, you taste a little bit and you spit it out. And then you taste a little bit and spit it out, and that combines with the first tasting. And you could only keep on tasting until you hit a revius. Once you hit a revius, you used up your available tasting for today. Now you could no longer taste. Why? Because if I taste again, now I exceeded the amount of hana that I'm allowed to have today. At a certain point, the hana becomes achila. What's that point? A revius. Once you hit a revius of tasting, now it became an achila. Much more difficult to understand. Okay. Sif Gimel, says the Mechaber. Mi shedarkoi lirchaitz piv b'shachris. Somebody who's in the habit of always rinsing out his mouth in the morning. Many people get up in the morning right away, some mouthwash, they rinse out their mouth. B'tainis tzibur loy kasher lemebad hachi. The Mechaber says on the tainis tzibur, very interesting phraseology. B'tainis tzibur loy kasher lemebad hachi. Somehow it's not kosher. It's not kosher to do that on a tainis tzibur. Ava b'tainis yachid. But if it's your own personal, individual tainus, shari it's mutter, kevin shapilate, since you're going to spit it out. Va'afilu yesh b'mayim sharoichitz yosim revius. On a private, individual tainus, you could go ahead and rinse out your mouth, says the Mechaber, even if you're using more than a revius. Okay. Says the Chavetz Chaim, it's cutting yud. But tainus tzibur like kosher. On a tainus tzibur, it's not proper to wash out your mouth. Hainu b'tanisim aksuvin. This is talking about the 4 tanisim that I mentioned in the pasuk. Asar b'tev shiva, also b'tamas tisha b'av tzem gedalia, and Yom Kippur would be the same din. Also, lemavad haki, you're not allowed to do this. It's not proper to do this. I was cutting it olive. Says the Mishnah Berurah, uvemokim tsar. If you're pashat b'tzar, sometimes you wake up in the morning and your mouth is all dried up and crusty, and you feel like you have just yucky stuff in your mouth, phlegm, etc. So if you're b'tzar, yesh lahater rechitzas peh b'mayim b'chol tainis tzibur. Then says the Mishnah Berurah, you could be matir, rinsing your mouth with water on any tainis tzibur. Let's leave Yom Kippur out of this. We'll deal with Yom Kippur when we learn Hilchos Yom Kippur, Mir Hashem. Right now, let's assume that we're talking about the 4 tanesim, Shiva Asa B'Tamas Asar B'Tevis Tisha B'Av Tzam Gedalia. Rak sheyizar b'yoser lichbayf roisha yupiv lamata shelo yavai ligroinoi. So the Chavetz Chaim says, on a tainis tzibur, if you're b'tzar, we could be matter rinsing out your mouth with water, but you should make sure to lean forward so that you shouldn't swallow any water. No water should inadvertently flow down your throat. Va'afilu b'tisha b'av yesh lahater. And even on Tisha B'av you could be matter this. Kishehu loy tzar gadol. If he has a lot of tzar, if he doesn't rinse out his mouth. And now the Mishnah Berurah Taka mentions Yom Kippur. Uv'yarma kippurim yesh la'achmer gam bazeh. On Yom Kippur, you should be machmir, even if you're b'tzar gadol, you should be machmir not to rinse out your mouth. The Mechaber said, on a private, individual tainus, you could rinse out your mouth, even if you have more than a revius. In this case, the person has no intent at all for te'ima. Till now, we were talking about te'ima. A person is at least getting the hana of te'ima. Over here, this person has no intent for te'ima whatsoever. He just wants to clean out his mouth. So in that case, so even more than a revius, what are you worried about? You're worried about hana? According to the first opinion, even according to the first strict opinion in Sif Beis, where the problem of more than a revius is that somehow once you get a hana from more than a revius, that constitutes an achila. But over here, you're rinsing out your mouth. You're not getting any hana. Your intent is not for hana at all. So therefore, by a private tainus yachid, you want to rinse out your mouth with water. You could do it, and even more than a revius. V'dafka b'mayim. However, says the Mishnah Berurah, this is only true with water. Avol b'shar mashkin, with other types of liquids, efshir diyesh lahachmer b'yosem revius. It could be then you have to be machmer more than a revius, because then you are getting hana. Ubedavar she'ein tov l'shtia k'goyin b'chaimitz. But if you're talking about something that's not drinkable, something like vinegar, mutter k'may b'mayim, that would be mutter the same way water is mutter. Now, what would be the din, let's say, of mouthwash? I wonder if there's a footnote about it over here. Yeah, not really, but I think mouthwash would fall under the category of shar mashkin that are usser. You see, you could read this Mishnah Berurah, and you could say ubedavar she'ein tov l'shtia, something that's not potable, something that's not drinkable, kigoyin b'chaimitz, like vinegar, mutter is mutter k'may b'mayim. And you'll tell me, well, Rabbi Weiss, Listerine is not drinkable. If you look at the bottle, it says do not swallow. So you'll want to tell me that Listerine is the same as vinegar. I don't think so, because over here we're dealing with the question of hana. Vinegar, you don't derive any hana from. Listerine, maybe not the original Listerine. I'm not sure anybody... I always felt that the original flavor of Listerine was intended to shock you awake. I'm not sure if anybody really derives hana from the original yellow Listerine flavor. But, the later iterations of Listerine, when they realized that they had to start competing with the likes of Scope, etc., so the mint-flavored ones and this and that, over there is a hana. And if the problem over here is hana, so then this is like shar mashkin, where you derive hana. And hana from more than a revius could be problematic. Now, the Aruch HaShulchan, and the footnote over here mentions the Aruch HaShulchan. If you want to look at the footnote, it's footnote number 12. He says, Achein, im taimei shel hachaimitz arev l'chikai, let's say somebody enjoys the taste of the vinegar. Kasav Aruch HaShulchan shelo yirchatz bai. Then the Aruch HaShulchan says, then the vinegar would be problematic. Why? Because there's hana involved. So it could be mouthwash would be a problem. So it could be that all the heterim that we have over here about rinsing out your mouth on the tinus is only with water. It's not with mouthwash. Okay. Now we go to the Ramah near the end of Siman Tavkov Samazayin. Says the Ramah Hagah, Umuter lilois, it is permissible to chew atse kinamoin. Let's say cinnamon sticks. You want to chew up a cinnamon stick. Ushar besamim, or other types of besamim, ve'etz mataik, or other types of sweet woods, lelachleach groinoi, to moisten your throat, v'lifleit, and then to spit it out. Sounds like something like chewing gum. Where does chewing gum come from? Right? Why did they invent chewing gum? It probably goes back to things like chewing tobacco, right? Backy. Because what's the purpose of chewing these things? When you chew these type of woods and spices, etc., that are fragrant, when you chew them, it makes you salivate. And that moistens your mouth and moistens your throat. But you don't swallow the backy, you spit it out. The same thing with these cinnamon sticks. And this is it, you're not swallowing it, you're spitting out. So therefore, says the Ramah, mutter lilai satze kidama nushar besamim ve'etz masaik lilachleach groinoi v'lifleit. You're allowed to do this. Milavad b'yom kippurim da aser, with the exception of Yom Kippur, where this would be aser. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Ois Katan Yud Gimel. Milavad b'yom kippurim da aser, with the exception of Yom Kippur, when this would be aser. Mimnei shehu daraisa, because Yom Kippur is, of course, it is a daraisa. This is only according to the Mordechai. According to the Mechaber in Sif Aleph, the Oiser b'Tishabav, According to the Mechaber in Sif Aleph, who said that Te'ima is forbidden on Tisha B'Av and on Yom Kippur, and according to the Ramah in Sif Aleph, who said Te'ima is also even on Shavasa B'Tamaz Asar B'Tevis and Sam Gedalia, Gam Be'inyonenu Dina Hachi. So then the same halacha would apply over here, that on Tisha B'Av and on the other Tanesim, chewing these items would be asur. So the Chavetz Chaim seems to be telling me that when the Ramah says over here, you're allowed to chew up these things, he's talking about, I guess, a private tinus. Or le'inyan levlai arukai, when it comes to swallowing spittle, swallowing saliva, right? 150 times during the day on a tinus, you swallow your own saliva. Matar Magen Avram af b'Yom Kippurim. The Magen Avram says that that's mutter even on Yom Kippur. Even though we say that even on Yom Kippur, if somebody drinks something which is not drinkable, potter, he's not chayiv karis, he doesn't have to bring a karbachatos, avalaser, but really it's an issa d'rabanan. Hachashani over here, it's different. There's no kavana for drinking at all when it comes to swallowing saliva. Just very interesting, this Sif Yud Gimel. I didn't pick up on this 100% clearly when I prepared this. Just want to see, the Chavetz Chaim seems to be saying, bear with me for 1 second. Yeah, it's very interesting. Again, I just want to make sure that we're clear on this. In Oiskat Yud Gimel, again, the Ramah said that you're allowed to chew cinnamon sticks, you're allowed to chew besamim in order to moisten your mouth and then spit it out, with the exception of on Yom Kippur. The Chavetz Chaim is making the point in Oiskat Yud Gimel that that's not, you shouldn't take that at face value, because the heter of chewing these items and spitting it out is based on the heter of te'ima. And in Sif Aleph, the Mechaber said that te'ima is asar on Tisha B'Av the same way it's asar on Yom Kippur. So then when the Ramah says here that these things are mutter with the exception of on Yom Kippur, not so fast. According to the Mechaber, it's asar on Tisha B'Av also. And according to the Ramah himself, it's also not mutter on all of the other Tanesim. Because the Ramah said in Sif Aleph that Te'ima is asr on all of the Tanesim that are written in the Pasuk. So according to the Ramah, Te'ima is asr on Shivas B'Tamaz Asar B'Tevis Sam Gedalia and Tisha B'Av. So you can't be matir chewing these items on any of those Tanesim. So then it comes out that when the Ramah said that this is mutter, it seems that he means only on a tinus yachid, on an individual's tinus, on somebody's private tinus, this would be mutter. But it wouldn't be mutter on a regular tinus tzibur, which is just odd because the Ramah himself doesn't write it that way. I don't have my Aruch HaShulchan here. I'm going to have to look at the Aruch HaShulchan and see what the Aruch HaShulchan says. I'll try to report back to you. All right, do we have time to start Siman Tavkuf Samaches? We have a couple of minutes. We have a little bit. Let's start Siman Tavkuf Samaches. Tavkuf Samaches, Dine Nidre Tainus, the halachos that apply to somebody who makes a neder to undertake a tainus of Boyud Bei Seifim, and here we have 12 Seifim. Says the Mechaber, Nadar L'Hisanois Yom Zeh. If somebody makes a neder to fast on a specific day, somebody makes a neder, I'm going to fast tomorrow on Thursday. He makes such a neder. V'shachach v'achal. And then tomorrow on Thursday he forgets the neder and he eats. What happens now? Says the Mechaber, mashlim tanisai. He has to complete his fast. Because, yeah, it's true, you ate. So technically you broke your fast. But still, your neder obligates you not to eat on this day. You made a neder that you're going to fast on Thursday. So, okay, so you ate. So now you should go eat more? like in the vernacular of Chazal, Misha achal shum v'reichai noidif, somebody who ate garlic and now he has bad breath. Yochel shum he should eat more shum? Just because you ate garlic, don't go make it worse. So it's very nice. You were supposed to fast today, you forgot you ate, so you broke your fast. That doesn't give you a heter to eat more. Says the Mishnah Berurah, he's cutting aleph. V'shachach v'achal, he forgot and he ate. V'afilu hizid, or even if he ate intentionally. V'achal harbe, and he ate a beautiful big meal. Lo yochel yoiser, he's not allowed to eat more. Ois cotton beis, mashlim tanisai. He has to complete his tainus. What the Mechaber means to say is, mechuyev lahashlam oisei hayoim. He has to complete the rest of the day without eating. He has to refrain from eating still through Tetzesa Kechavim. And it's not going to help him to say, all right, forget today's fast. I'll eat the rest of the day today and I'll fast another day. Because when he made his neder, he said he's going to fast on this day. So today he's not allowed to eat. Yesterday he said, today I'm going to be in a tainus. So just because he broke his fast, that doesn't give him a heter to keep on eating. Continues the Mechaber, v'hu adin, the same halacha would apply, tainus chaloim. Let's say somebody had a very bad dream, and he's undertaking a tainus chaloim, and then he incidentally ate on his tainus chaloim. He has to finish out the day without eating. He can't now go eat. Or it's a tainus tzibur, it's shivasa b'tamas. Shivasa b'tamas, came lunchtime, somebody went and started eating. What's the matter with me? It's shivasa b'tamas. So that doesn't give him a heter to continue eating. It's still shivasa b'tamas. You're not allowed to eat shivasa b'tamas. Or if it's a day that everybody knows this person fasts every year on that day. It's the yard site for his father, the yard site for his Rebbe. So in all of those cases, he has to finish out the tainus, because the tainus is dependent on that day. On that day, there's an isser for him to eat. On the other hand, contrast this to a different case. If somebody undertook a neder, I'm going to fast one day, but he didn't name the day. Or he said, I'm going to fast 2 days. And then he decided, oh, you know what? I owe 2 tanesim, so I'm going to fast today. And he started to fast. And then shachach v'achal kezayis, and then he forgot that he was fasting, and he ate a kezayis of food. In that case, ibed tanisai, he destroyed his tainus. He lost that tainus. V'chayev lotzub yom acher, and he could eat the rest of that day, and he's going to have to make up the tainus on a different day. Says the Mishnah Berurah here, v'hu adin tainus tzibur. On a tainus tzibur also, I don't care if you accidentally ate in the middle of the day, you have to refrain from eating for the rest of the day. V'nireh, says the Chavetz Chaim, it appears to me, to b'tainus tzibur, on a tainus tzibur, afal pisha achal, even though you ate, yachal loymar anenu b'tfilasai. You're still allowed to say anenu. So Shiva also b'tamas, you accidentally ate, now it comes to mincha, you could still say anenu. The shaykh loymar, because it's appropriate to say anenu b'yom tzayim hatainus hazeh. You could use the lashon instead of saying b'yom tzayim ta'anisenu. Answer me, Hashem, on the day of our tainus. Maybe that you shouldn't say because you're not fasting, but you definitely could say b'yom tzayim hatainus hazeh on this day of a tainus. Because the Chazal said that you should fast on Shivas B'tamas. So it is a fast day, whether you ate or not. So you could say Anenu. We saw this concept earlier in Siman Tavkov Samachay. Aval imhu tainus yachid. But if it's your own private individual fast, and now we're talking about the first case of the Mechaber, you made a neder to fast on a specific day, and you accidentally ate, and now the halacha is that you have to continue your tainus because you said, I'm not going to eat on this specific day, so you're not allowed to eat. In that case, even though you have to complete the tainus and you're not allowed to eat for the rest of the day, if you ate enough that it would have destroyed your tainus, you shouldn't say anenu, because what makes it a fast day? It's not a fast day for you, you ate. It's true you're not allowed to eat for the rest of the day, but you can't call it a tainus because you ate a kazayas of food. And you can't say b'yom tzayim tanisenu. You also can't say B'yom Tzar Matanis Hazeh, because this is not a fast day. It's only a fast day for you. It's not a fast day for anybody else. Okay, we're going to stop over here because I see we're going overtime. So we'll stop here. B'ez Hashem, we'll pick up tomorrow with Ois Katan Dalet in the Mishnah Berurah. Thank you so much for joining me for limud HaTorah. The discussion of limud HaTorah should be made against Klal Yisrael. The Rebbeinu Shalom should send Yeshua's refuahs and parnasa to all those in need. A special wish of refuah shalei to Shlomo Zalman ben Mesha, Menachem Aryeh ben Dina Yehudis, Yisrael Tzvi ben Ruchama, Edel Roiza, B'sai Sharchel Yisrael, and we should be zeicher to see the Bias Gal Tzedek b'meher v'yameinu. Amen. Be well.